Hey guys, it's Oakley, and we're going to be covering some of the Total War news. I entitled this video, or at least the main theme of it, is going to be upsetting the apple cart. And this is going to be drawn directly from one of the articles that I read. Basically what I did is I read through the almost 9 or 10 major articles that were released with this lifting of the basically the embargo date. So that's why you saw so much news come out lately on the vampire counts. But upsetting the apple cart was one of the main lines, and I thought it was pretty symbolic of the theme behind most of the articles and kind of the theme behind the vampire counts and even Total War Warhammer in general. So upsetting the apple cart, basically what that means is it's a disruption of the Total War way of doing things typically. So obviously, right off the bat, Total War Warhammer is fantasy that's going to be totally different from your traditional Total War. And there were perhaps indications that CA may not go all out with the units. However, it seems like they have totally embraced the fantastical realm of things and really fleshed things out. Particularly with the vampire counts, a lot of the reviewers were saying that they played totally differently. And we're just going to break this down. So first and foremost, they say that the undead are a specialized faction more so than any other they've seen. And I, from playing as the vampire counts, can corroborate this statement. Basically, what they say is they have a lot of crap units up through the front. These are your zombies, your skeletons, a lot of the undead guys, or sorry, revived guys. And then you have these super powerful lords that come in and punch through. And then you have the fast, agile troops such as the flying units. And the reviews were saying that these are some of the best units, flying units in the game. So you can use these to harass with giant bats, type elite units, do a lot of tricky stuff. And reading all this from a multiplayer perspective, I'm very, very excited when I read things about, lightning attack, harassment, sandbagging with weak troops, and then powerful lords that have to be specifically applied to do buffs and debuffs and, apply pressure in certain areas. This all screams out to be very, very tactically involved. And so I'm very excited about this. Some of the reviewers, when we were talking about some of the flying units, mentioned how the low tier guys aren't that great, but once you get to the high tier, like the Varkais pictured in the back, that they will come down and their animations are pretty awesome. They'll land on the ground, have an area of effect impact, which is going to scatter troops, and they start plucking them up. Some might fly away with them, tear them apart. So just CA getting the visceral component right. And this is what's going to be really awesome. So again, back to the theme of disrupting the apple cart is going to make for a lot of different variety, but at the same time, CA can't break what Total War is. Total War has never been super balanced, but at least there's the range of different unit stats is relatively small, but come fantasy, it blows it wide open. So what was revealed in one of the interviews that I just showed you in that text is basically that they have a way to run behind the scenes, just computations to see, okay, this unit against this unit, who wins? This unit against another unit, who wins? And then they can have kind of stats and statistics based off of that. That's what CA has mentioned that they've been doing. I assume they've done that in the past, but I'm hoping that they really put a lot into this because balancing is going to be super critical. Speaking of some other mechanics that makes the vampires more interesting is instead of morale, a lot of the troops have what is been called kind of crumbling. And that basically means that you don't have to worry about morale penalties due to losing troop numbers in general. You have to instead worry about taking heavy casualties and then not routing, but crumbling. So it's kind of analogous to routing, but it functions differently. But basically what people were saying is the way it ties into kind of the campaign is that at the end of your battles, because your troops are weak and they kind of burn out and crumble, you're going to end up at the end of the battle with a very depleted army, which means you're going to have to go ahead and immediately start compensating for this by recruiting units, but you're going to do so by having this large base of easily recruitable zombies, skeletons, a lot of fluff that you can easily get your units back up. And this is going to be very different, again, speaking back to the apple, disrupting or overturning the apple cart. This plays very differently than we've been used to. A cool mechanic that kind of feeds off of this is essentially if you're trying to raise undead after a battle to replenish your troops, well, you can actually get, there is you want to track down the site of where there's a lot of corpses that you can recruit from or raise from. And so they say here, when a major battle takes place in the world, it's marked on the map, and an undead lord who travels to the spot can raise the fallen to create a makeshift horde or to bulk up an already existing army. This type of stuff is very interesting. It's what's going to make the units play differently. That's so cool. Now, you remember in games like Rome or other titles where you have a heroic or legendary victory, when you play one of those battles, it showed up on the map. In this case, imagine visiting that, and then when you do that, you can raise troops. And I can imagine different vampire counts are going to kind of fight and squabble for recruiting amongst that. But it also has an interesting effect where if you're attacking the Empire or other forces on their grounds, the more you kill them, the more easily you can recruit your own forces. So that'll be an interesting mechanic. Speaking of recruitment, one of the articles did confirm that the war chest runs on necromancy, which is essentially the analog to just gold in general. So it could be a bit, just a visual change from gold, but it does function a bit differently in the way you have to get it. I assume you can get some of this necromancy from some of your, those post-battle ransacking of the corpses type situations. But then there's also going to be another campaign mechanic which has to do with the vampiric corruption that's been spread around, and I've talked about this before, but basically it functions like the creep for the Zerg, where the campaign is going to be, like you can see here in the background, kind of corrupted and all that, and you can slowly push this out, and it will visually impact and affect the campaign map. But once you stray outside of that area, you'll take pretty significant attrition. And so you have to slowly creep and take over the world in this way, which is going to be interesting mechanically. Something they said here with regards to like stepping outside of those bounds, they say here, I'm not entirely clear on the specifics as to how it can be encouraged or the numbers that are being crunched, referring to the spreading of corruption, but sending out an advanced party to occupy an enemy city can lead to catastrophe. Away from the necromantic influence of the vampiric lands, they suffer a horrendous rate of attrition and will crumble to dust before they can set up efficient siege defenses. So this could be seen as a way of kind of artificially limiting the expansionist tendencies of players, which could be bad. It limits gameplay, but at the same time you have to be more strategic, and it means the vampire counts have to play very differently. You're going to be slowly, methodically pushing out your creep, and if you want to go ahead and attack aggressively beyond your supply lines, then you have to get powerful lords, you have to have agents traveling with you who can have necromantic boosting in your areas, and you have to perhaps plan out your campaigns well in advance by pushing out, having agents kind of spread a path of corruption ahead of you. So it's going to be more of a mind game. Now, they did say that the AI has been revamped. Now, they say this every title, but what they've said here is, I'm just going to quote it, overextending an army or moving too far away from your base is a risk that on very easy levels might basically hamper you, and the AI is going to be pretty brutal. So take that with a grain of salt. I don't believe any of these quotes about the AI early on, so we'll have to wait and see about it. But basically, the final quote that I wanted to deal with is this one here, where they talk about how the game is less about painting the map your color and more about hitting certain objectives to establish dominance. And that goes to what I was just talking about, where the vampires are going to have trouble pushing past their corruption. You have similar things limiting growth with the fact that only certain factions can take over and occupy certain opposing regions. So this all is a big, again, upsetting of the apple cart. In previous Total War games, it was all about you can conquer anywhere, anytime, and just go to town. But it kind of develops this weird mid to late game where you get to a point where you just no opposition and you can steamroll. This offers a chance to change and overturn that apple cart. Now, of course, all the balancing, all of that has to wait and see, is it worth it? But at least this is an offer of something fresh. So that's it. That's my recap. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.